Welcome to the second part of this project, the range target Sherman. Okay. Before we get into the chipping part, just want to say a couple of things about the hairspray technique for doing a rust. It's a little different than if you were doing a faded whitewash on the vehicle, a Russian tank or a Tiger or something like that. You don't want to go at the paint and the hairspray, with stiff brushes, really scrubbing to get it off, removing large chipped areas. You want to work slowly, okay, sections at a time. The smaller the better. You want to chip it so it looks realistic, okay. You want to expose the rust underneath. You don't want to remove large patches. It just looks unrealistic. And a lot of little tiny rust spots, looks great and is realistic, and great palette for doing rust staining and streaking. I've gone ahead and added a big bullseye on the side of the tank, both sides, a white area with a big X, and we're going to be chipping that up. I've also gone ahead and done these two panels right here and those access plates there. What we're going to do first in the chipping, we'll do a couple of panels so I can show you how I went about doing that. And like I said, you want to try to get it realistic. Work slow. I know it's with hairspray and you think you got to go fast and everything, but trust me, you don't. This was painted yesterday when we did the first video, and I did a little bit of chipping this morning, and I could probably chip for the next 2 days. Okay, the trick to it is, you want to put a lot of water on there, let it soften the paint, and remove some if it's too much. That's where the Q-tips come in handy, or a soft rag. And when you see and feel that the paint is soft enough, then you can go at it with various types of brushes, a toothpick, and slowly start removing the paint, exposing the rust. Okay, like I said, you're not going to be going at it with a stiff brush or removing a lot of paint. Okay, it just doesn't look right. It's unrealistic. I haven't seen anything like that out there in real life. I've been doing wrecked and rusted models for about 10 years, and I've studied a lot of rusted metal and vehicles and objects, so I know that it doesn't look right. We'll be doing, like I said, those panels, and I'm going to try to get the bullseye in on this video. If not, we'll do it on the next one. See, I already started that this morning to see how it looks. After the chipping, I'll do some of the chipping for the video, and then I'll go ahead and turn off the camera and I'll chip the hell out of the rest of the model, and then we'll go into the weathering part of it, rust weathering, and some washes, and maybe filters, but mainly dark washes, dark rust colors, dark brown, and then we'll do some streaking and staining and playing around, layering up the rust, trying to get the right effect so it looks right. Okay, let's get to it then. Let's start chipping. Okay, let's start the chipping of the hull. I've already done a couple of panels, and what I'm going to do in the video is probably another 2 panels here, or one there, one here. First thing to do is, with some warm tap water, just go ahead and wet the surface. This will avoid any tide marks or water stains. Doesn't have to be a lot of water, just to wet it. And then the section you're going to be working on, you can add more water. And like I said before, the difference between doing this type of chipping and, say, a faded or worn whitewash is you want to put a lot of water on there and let it sit in. Okay, this will soften up the paint. Just wait a while and play around, and you'll see if it's softening up. Give it a second. What you want to do is slowly remove the paint, just hitting the panel edge there. You can use various size brushes for that. This is a softer brush. You can use a toothpick and you can start picking at the paint, forming little chips. Go around that area there. You'll see the paint starting to blister up. It's a good indication that it's ready for chipping. I'm going to show you with a larger brush. Just lightly stipple it on. It gives you a different effect. A little rubbing motion. If it starts drying up on you, just simply add some more water. I'll go with a different brush. Go with the larger one. I don't want to remove too much paint in this area. I want to vary the panels, you know, some with a lot of rust, some with very little. We'll hit the bottom of the panel line because when the water runs down, it'll collect down at the bottom before running off. So that'll wear through the paint a lot quicker and start rusting quicker than up here. And of course, water and fuel areas, that'll really eat into paint after a long time. Use a really small brush for that. Some warm water. You just start picking at it. You can always go back and touch up. I'm doing here. You can remove more or less. Well, not less, but you can remove more of the paint. I like to take a damp Q-tip, just lightly roll it across. You don't want to rub it, just roll it just to remove excess water. And take a different brush and just start making scrapes. Scrapes and scratches you can add to it. You can also hit those panel lines a lot better. All the brushes I use are cheap brushes I've gotten at Michael's. Nothing special. If you want to do one area where a lot of the paint has been removed, you can go ahead and do that. I'll just hit this area here, exposing a lot of the rust. Once you remove a large section, then you can go back with the finer chips around the edges. Also kind of forms blistered paint. We have the rust underneath the paint where the rust is forming. Another thing you can do is use some cardstock. Place it on the panel edge, that way you don't go over onto the next panel. You might not want the rust being right there. And just go ahead and remove some of the paint. This way you have a nice line and you haven't removed any from the other panel. That's basically how I did this section here, how I'm going to do basically the entire lower hull. The cast section on the front, the transmission cover, we'll do that the way we did the turret. Just add some more water there. Get some better chipping there. You can also take some bristles, say from a stiff brush like this or a larger cheap brush. Take a couple of bristles, come down to about say 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, glue them on a toothpick, and then you can use that for poking at it and forming scratches. Just basically trying to lift the paint. I'm doing that with this old worn brush. Once you get it the way you want it, then just remove any excess water with a damp Q-tip. Be careful of any fine PE parts that you don't pull it off. What you're doing here is just removing the excess water again so you don't have any tide marks or water stains. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of the upper hull, and then we'll start rusting up the sides. Okay, the last thing to do once you get all the chipping done is to go ahead and chip around like nuts and bolts. I've already pre-wet these two areas. Let the water sit a while. Added some more just to soften it up. What you do is use a toothpick or any other small pointy object, and you just start picking around the bolt heads or any other details. You can always add more water like here just to soften it up some more. And you just pick at it, removing the paint. And add some other chips next to it. Get around there. It's one of the last things I do is just chip around nuts and bolts or whatever other details there are that you can't get with larger brushes. And then you can later on hit it with a small paintbrush to touch it up. Then with the Q-tip you just dry it off. Like I said, that's the last thing I do before I start the weathering and actual rusting.